Let me tell you a story. It doesn't start out as a happy story, but it's a start to what I want to tell. Let's begin.
Keep moving, you filthy runt,
said Akar, the man behind the young boy, carrying all his gear. He shoved the 12-year-old forward.
We're almost at the place. I can feel it,
he said, looking around him in the dense jungle.
Well, don't hit him too hard. We'll need him to carry everything back if it's not here,
said the man in front of the boy, Jakan. The man was built bigger than Akar, though didn't have the brains Akar did. Though, together, they barely shared a single brain.
I don't know about you, but I'm a-thinking that it's not here, just like the last planet. I still think we should try that last chunk of Earth on Radir. It's an old ruin they never touched as far as my research goes,
Jakan said, looking down at the map.
It's here. All my research points to this desolate planet. It's nowhere near Radir,
Akar said.
The Gate of Oblivion is on this planet, and we will find it,
he said, pushing past the young slave to get a hold of the map.
There are plenty of places on this planet that have yet to be studied.
The two knuckleheads who have the 12-year-old slave were archaeological treasure hunters, having been spending a couple years looking for different treasures from gold caches to relics of power, though usually only getting the gold. Though here and there they have found relics that still function, though they rarely used them due to how fragile they are. Every so often there is someone who wants them to go and study different artifacts. Their most recent investor is a strange man who assumes the role of a professor on Radir, having been looking for the Gate of Oblivion, saying that he had people in high places that could get them enough alimony to retire.
So you want to try and look around an entire planet on foot for it? We aren't getting paid that much for this project,
Jakan explained.
Come on, man. I can only stand walking around for so long.
Akar didn't look happy with that.
Oh, shut up. You can go stay in the ship if you want. I'll just take the money for myself and you can continue on these hunts while I'm relaxing in retirement,
he said with a smirk, since it silenced Jakan.
Boy, hurry up,
he called out, not even bothering to look at the slave who was right next to him. I'm right here, said the boy, causing the man to jump. The little boy was carrying Akar and Jakan's packs, weighing in at almost half his weight. He wasn't able to build muscle based on the small amount of food they gave him, so he was pretty scrawny. He had an old spacesuit on from a year ago, one they had found at a discount store since no one is allowed to go in certain classifications of space shuttles unless they have a spacesuit on.
Well, then hurry up,
Jakan added, smirking at the boy he awfully treated.
We don't have forever to find this thing.
Now, this isn't something that's uncommon. Slavery is something that is frowned upon in the galaxy, but not illegal on most planets. Now, what makes this story so special? Is it because of the journey they are going on? No, not specifically. Is it the two idiots? Not even close. It's the slave. Now, what makes this slave so special, you ask? Well, I'll give you a hint. One that the kid doesn't even know yet. His full name. Tariq Oblivion. Tariq was sitting at what was the remains of the fire at the edge of the camp, poking the embers with a stick. He didn't speak much, usually finding anything he said just to get himself punished. He knew he should try and get something set up to protect him from the outside world, but he didn't want to build a small shelter at the moment. He jumped a little bit as he heard a loud, thunderous snore coming from Jakan. signifying the man was asleep. He didn't like Jacan or Akar, nor did most people. They were quite unpleasant towards anyone that even possibly disagreed with them. He, out of everyone in the entire galaxy, knew that. He dealt with them every single day, dealing with their worst sides. He knew Jacan could become violent. He had the scars to prove it. He knew Akar could be offensive. He had built up the emotional barriers to prove it. Sometimes he felt numb, not usually showing any sort of emotion, not really ever wanting. Though just because he didn't show emotions didn't mean he didn't feel them. He could definitely feel fear as his pulse increased, as he heard something snap a couple twigs as it got closer. Something big, a low rumble, coming from the direction of the footfalls. Now, let me remind you that this is on a completely foreign planet that you probably have never heard of before. And most creatures aren't the same on most planets. Unless, of course, they were an invading species from different space shuttles or whatnot. But an example of one of these interesting creatures is one known as the Armis tiger. Not many people have heard of this. There are some in private collections of only the finest, richest people in the entire galaxy. But otherwise, most have never seen one. They look, of course, like a normal tiger, only with silver and dark gray fur. Now, you may think, what's the big deal about that? Other than this fur is made out of aluminum. Tiny aluminum needles. The bones? Just naturally occurring carbon fiber. And the skin and muscles are strong enough to withstand small caliber weapons. So of course, it's not the weirdest thing in the galaxy. I bet you've heard of stranger ones. But it is definitely a very strong and capable creature. He didn't move, not wanting to bring the creature closer to him, though it continued getting closer and closer. He looked over in the slight moonlight to see a large mass slowly getting closer to him. The light reflecting off the beast, revealing it to be a tiger, slowly walking towards him. He held his breath as it got closer, not content with the idea of becoming wild cat food. The tiger slowly got closer and closer, heading straight for him and stopping less than a foot away from his face. He could feel the tiger's breath on him as it started sniffing him. He tried hard to keep his own breathing as shallow as he could to keep from frightening the Armis tiger. After some time of the beast sniffing him, the tiger let out a low rumble that Tariq soon realized was a purr. He felt the tiger nuzzle him slightly. Though the fur was made of aluminum, it wasn't sharp, having enough of a rounded tip to keep from causing bleeding from touching the fur from the wrong way. The tiger nuzzled his face, giving him a slight lick to the cheek. Tariq couldn't help but smile, feeling something calming and natural with the tiger there. Though he couldn't place why in the galaxy he felt this way around a giant beast. Almost by instinct, he reached up and ran his hand down the top of the creature's head. hearing the purr get even louder. Tariq's smile grew. He knew that Akar and Jakan wouldn't let him keep the tiger, but it was nice to feel as if, for a moment, he had a pet. The tiger soon moved around Tariq, laying behind him. Tariq laid back, using the tiger as a backrest. He reached up to the tiger's ear, scratching right behind it. The armless tiger began vibrating all the way through its body, the purring so loud and strong. Tariq found the vibrations relaxing. He assumed it was similar to those first-class space shuttle seats that Akar and Jakan would sit in while he was stuck in the lowest class of seating possible. They probably would have shoved him in the storage compartment if that was an option. The vibrations soon began lulling him into his exhaustion, feeling his eyes slowly droop as he turned on his side and fell asleep against the side of his new friend. For the first time since he could remember, he had a good dream. One where he had all the power in the galaxy. And he would never get beaten again. He never had oppressors. And he was able to help others in need. Those that had faced afflictions similar to him. The ability to save the world as a whole.
Get up, you runt.
Tariq jolted awake too, finding himself on the ground where the tiger left him alone while he slept.
Get up and start packing the camp.
He heard Jakan yell at him. Tariq got up quickly, wishing that the dream could only become reality. He went over to the tent that Akar and Jakan had and was just starting to clean up what was in the tent, but soon heard a growl of annoyance from behind him.
Hey!
And was soon grabbed by the back of his outfit and thrown out of the tent. Jakan looked at him with a scowl as Tariq hit the ground hard.
I need my stuff out still, runt,
he said before zipping the tent up, obviously having not slept very well that night. Tariq laid on the ground for a moment, in shock from the blow to his back. Soon he felt a pain start to form on his shoulder blade, right next to his spine. He slowly got up, feeling spikes of pain in his back. He looked to see what had hit him and found the point of a large rock in the place where his shoulder blade hit. A smudge of red now visible on the rock. He reached his back the best he could to find a wet cut in his suit. He stood up, a small amount of blood on his hand now, as he waited for Jakan to come out of the tent. He knew if he went off to try and clean his wound, they would get angry at him, since he wouldn't be there to clean up for them. He waited there for a while, ignoring the pain in his back. Finally, Jakan came back out with his small pack on.
All right, go take care of the stuff,
he said, still grumpy. Tariq walked into the tent and sighed at the mess they managed to make in a single night. Time to clean it all up. They had been hiking up a mountainside when they finally reached the ridge of a mountain range they were on. From the vantage point, Tariq could see around him for miles out, seeing the forest they had been walking through the first day spread out as far as he could see.
Would you look at that,
Jakan? Tariq heard Akar say. He looked over the way Akar was pointing to see a giant black mass next to a nearby mountain. The mass looked like it had fallen onto the side of the mountain, which didn't have any vegetation on it, the mountainside looking like it was scorched clean.
Is that what I think it is?
Jakan asked, looking at it, excited, bringing up the binoculars he had around his neck.
"Those markings on the side look right,"
he said, looking at the mass. Tariq had no clue what they were talking about. He tried hard to look for details on the mass. He could make out that it wasn't natural, having very flat surfaces and angles. He could see where other odds and ends on the thing, what looked to be whole chunks taken out of the surface.
"It's the remnant of the Juggernaut. It's been lost for well over a century, right?"
Akar asked Jakan, both looking quite excited at their discovery. Akar was grinning ear to ear.
"That is the part of the most powerful ship that ever existed. It took an entire nation 5 years to build the thing."
"Don't forget that it was capable of holding an entire planet's worth of people on board, and lasted for well over a decade before it was finally destroyed by the armadas of multiple planets,"
Jakan pointed out, both of them nerding out about the crashed piece of ship. Tariq wasn't sure why in the world they were very enthusiastic about the ship, having never really gotten any education, so he didn't know much about history, math, or writing. If he had gone to school, then he would have learned about the ship, the Juggernaut. It is considered to be the greatest space ship in recorded history, designed and built by a military-based nation that wished to leave their dying world. They created the Juggernaut as a method to one day claim a new place to call home. In the end, the Juggernaut became the most notorious ship in the galaxy. The populace becoming raiders, plundering innocent cities, nations, and planets of their resources. The Juggernaut was an engineering masterpiece, no doubt, having not been able to be taken down for over a decade before a multitude of planets joined together with their space fleets and finally took down the beast, though after it was destroyed, a self-destruct system was activated, destroying all but 5 chunks of the ship. The other 4 were much smaller and were now in museums, while the largest piece was on a mostly undiscovered planet that they were now on, explaining why it was still there.
"We are going to have to come back here. I want to take a good look in that thing,"
Akar said with a content sigh.
"Agreed, but let's get the job we were asked to do first, all right?"
Jakan asked, and was responded with a nod from Akar.
"Then let's head out,"
he said, gesturing along the mountain range they were on. Tariq sighed, not wanting to move on, already tired of carrying the pack he had on, though without hesitation he followed along behind Jakan, not really bothering to say anything about the ship.